Hi everyone, today gonna talk about i18n and l10n, internationalization and localization. Today's talk will be divided in two different parts. First, we're gonna see an outline of all these concepts, and last, we're gonna see how to implement them in our web applications. But first things first. Hello, ni hao, and ciao. My name is Romulo Cintra. I've been working on financial industry since ever. Also try to contribute to some bodies of standards like ECMA 402 and Unicode, where I'm chairing the message format working group. On my spare time, I try to be contribute as much as I can to open source and teach. You find here my YouTube and my Twitter handles. Please follow me if you can and give me some feedback about this talk, or reach me to say hi or ask me anything about this presentation. You should all recognize this picture. It's a representation of our world map. We are more than 7 billions living here, yet completely packed, and we need to communicate. We can use smoke signs, voice, gestures, written communication, or any other creative way of pass the message to point A to point B. But it's difficult to pass a message even speaking the same language. Imagine if we have more than 195 countries and more than 6,000 different languages. Those are the main drivers of i18n and l10n. Assuming that nobody can speak all of those languages or translate all of those languages, the work of internationalization and localization is to bring to the software, to bring to our web, the tools and the means of making it more international and more accessible to everybody. Of course, saying that it's impossible to speak, I forgot that some people has some kind of superpowers. But for those that don't have superpowers, we have i18n. And guess what? Means internationalization. And between the first and last letter, they are 18 different charities, meaning that the main reason for this acronym is that. And what this i18n is preparing the web to be more understandable by everybody. What this means that we need to build as a developers, because normally our developers that do this part, we need to build all the structure, all the facilitation and adaptations to our software be easily translatable, meaning that you can use your browser APIs, your language APIs, or even libraries that can help you to make your web international. You have a different concept that, yes, guess what? l10n, they are 10 characters and means localization. And localization is the act of to make web more familiar to everybody. First, we spoke about internationalization that creates the structures to internationalize. And here on localization is when we do this internationalization effective, meaning that normally it's done by translators and is not just translate, it's fill all the gap between the particularities that exist in each different language, like currency, dates, time zones, or even in the same language you have slightly different things that needs to be filled with this part. Means that normally it's done by translators. But don't worry if you don't have any translator on your team, or you are a small team, or for any reason you're already doing IE18N, but without the support, you're already doing well. Because all the efforts to internationalize and localize are great. Congratulations. Now it's time for G11N. We didn't spoke about this concept at the beginning, but it's so important too. And stands for globalization. Yeah. And normally it's done by companies, as I say here, but it's a little bit different. It's making a product, it's internationalize a product, and requires more things. Requires not just translating, requires that you adapt that product to a country, to all the matters to be a successful product in all different countries. Normally it includes legal adaptation, cultural adaptation, cultural or regional adaptation, and anything that is needed for that product to be accepted as a familiar product in a different country. And wrapping this up, we have globalization that can encapsulate both internationalization and localization. The first one, like it says, make it possible. It's open all the tools to facilitate the good translation. And last but not least, localization is doing effective this translation, doing rich and effective and clear translation to have a good perception and a good message passed to all our users. Um, I didn't want to talk about this, but I felt that it's so important. And as a heads up, don't do this. Nothing we spoke so far represent this picture. Be careful and just do the things in the right way because they have a huge impact. And if you want to be remembered to do a good localization, we need to see examples of poor localization. And today we're gonna do a quick trip through all the cinema industry because I think that is the one that worst localize texts and the titles of movies. We have here a well-known movie. Everybody knows Steve Carell and everybody knows Dan in real life. Here in Spain, we call it como la vida misma, like life itself. That doesn't mean nothing related with the original title. But well, they forgot about Dan and nothing. You cannot guess the name of the picture if you never saw it in Spanish. In Portugal, we have similar thing. They at least kept the real life and they call amor e vida real, love and real life. They forgot about that again, but they still having real life. Still difficult to guess what the picture it is, but anyway, you need to see the movie poster to have a clear idea. And in Brazil, if I think that it's the worst one because they call eu, meu irmão e a nossa namorada. Well, me, my brother, and our girlfriend, nothing to do with Dan. They almost spoiling all the picture. And yes, I think that it's not okay doing this kind of localization. I understand that this industry has many benefits and will work to improve and will work to get the um, most profitable income from all these titles. But anyway, you need to be careful because this is important to deliver the correct message. You need to share the correct message. And going from the principle that you are trying to translate content and a concept, this is nothing to do with that because we are not even translating the real sentence and the real title. And we need to think this in about accessibility matter because if you are doing it right, you have a good impact and not a poor impact like in the cinema industry. And this is important for a huge number of different things. But we're gonna see that it's a reason to improve your experience with your users because if you are doing it right, users will be happy and will visit our software, your web, and will understand it. You will have a wider audience as a consequence. Of course, better conversion because more people. And the most important fact that you will build a more inclusive web, a more inclusive software. Sometimes I don't speak just about web, I speak globally. I speak about software because here we are to internationalize software. In our case, it's web and we use JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. And is the main reasons that we are talking about fixing. Yes, fixing your localization. Yeah, it's right. And to start fixing your localization, we're gonna start with HTML, the simplest part of our constructions. And on HTML, you can see this is a song, well-known song by everybody. I won't sing, I promise, but don't worry about the things because every little thing's gonna be alright. It's a song well known by Bob Marley. I love this song. And this is how we see it when you navigate to a web page. And this is how browsers see it. Just uh, put some attention on the lang attribute. You have the first is on top of HTML, that is English, and each different line I added a different one: French, Japanese, Spanish, Portuguese, Brazil. And this is how browsers see it. But yeah, browsers are okay with that. But how screen readers see it? Well, they see that there is a French guy, a Japanese, a Spanish, a Portuguese from Brazil, girl or boy trying to speak this text to someone that needs to understand it. And this is a very, very confusing thing because how users see it.
Don't worry about a thing.
Cause every little thing gonna be alright.
Singing don't worry about a thing.
Cause every little thing gonna be alright.
Yes, like that. Well, why this is so important to fix this on HTML? Looks like it's so simple, but if you fix it, we will have better screen readers integration. You will have more efficient spell checking and grammar checkers, and last but not least, all the translations and interoperability between the tools and your website will be more effective. And this means that you probably won't need to translate your website, because if you are doing it well, Google Translate or any other tool or platform will easily handle this for you. Of course, if you have opportunity to do your own rich translations, you will be better covered. But this is something, and you should, if you don't have any other alternative, just go forward with that, and we will be localized and internationalized quite efficiently. We have CSS. Well, nobody thought that CSS also is localizable. Yes, it is. And here we're gonna talk about two different things. The first one tip, that is the Unicode range. It's something that you can add on your font face load, and that way you can map and use different strategies to load your fonts. This is a cool tip when you need to support Cyrillic, Arabic, or different alphabets more than Latin, because here you can load a range of characters for a specific font. That way you can be more efficient loading fonts, and also direct to the specific language you need. Beside of that, you have also the lang pseudo selector, and that pseudo selector receives a property or a variable called that it's the language that are on your web page, meaning that you can conditionally add styles or conditionally style your page based on attribute language. Imagine for English, you have one type of codes. For German or French, you can have different types. But this is not about just codes. You can have different images. Don't do like the example we saw before. But you can conditionally think about this as a media queries for language based on CSS. And if you do this, you have some performance improvement and a better i18n based on styles, meaning that you can conditionally paint and load your your web in a very, very, very efficient way. This is cool. This is something that you should start using right now. This is something that is so simple but is so powerful and can have a huge impact at the same time. Now it's time for JavaScript. But before start with JavaScript, I just need to say hi to everybody from ECMA 402, because they are doing an excellent job on bringing new features to the language and to existing Intel APIs. And talking about Intel APIs, I have just a few of them here: collator, locality, time format, relative time format, number format, list format, plural rules, display names, duration, all the new ones that are coming like temporal, and all of them are excellent work, and they are evolving a lot during the last years. And today we're gonna talk about a few of them, because we don't have time to talk about all all of. But yes, we're gonna start with datetime format. It's a old one, but there are some options that are new, like date style, time style, and format range. We're gonna start with date style. Well, you here we have formatting in a different ways your date styles, and you notice when you have a full formatting, you need to use words, the name of the month or name of the day, um, beside of all the structure and all the formatting. You need this rich data to well format your dates, and so far this wasn't achievable without having to load tons of extra data depending of the language that you support. Now it's easier because it's everything on the browser, and you can do it in one line. It's one line formatting you should start using. For time, it's the same, yeah. Here you have a well formatted time depending of the country, completely localized. In our case here in Europe, it's 21:55. In US will be 9:55 p.m. and so on, so on. This is cool. This is one line. This is something that you should use to format your dates. And last but not least, the best use case: how many times you need to format a range between one date and another date. Yes, this is correct. Here, with the format range, with all the options that you have, you can tweak to format correctly and format the way you prefer a range of dates. This is useful for this use case when you need to book a trip, or any other case that you need to have a relation between one date and another in a range. Relative time format is also stage 4 and is one of the most complex ones because we already had it on all libraries like Moment, they, FNS, but they need large portions of CLDR or to build their features, meaning that to have a relative format between one day and another point of the time was so difficult because sometimes you want to say in 2 weeks, narrow or long, or in 2 months, yesterday, 2 weeks ago. And of course, having all these texts, all this rich translation of this expression was so difficult. Here we don't have a full explanation of all APIs, but you should go MDN. All documentation are there, are carefully crafted for you. Also, I contribute in some of them, and you should visit and to see. Here in our case of relative time format, it's easier. You have a fantastic relative time formatting with the rich translated text for you. You can apply in different use cases. Imagine you have a delivery system. Your package will arrive in 2 weeks. You don't need to have any kind of expressions, any kind of translations built in your system. You use the browser and you are safe. We have list format. This one is also a very, very cool one. It's also stage 4. Yes, when I say stage 4, because this the time passed flying, because I remember some of them on stage 2 or stage 3, and now they are already part of the language. Here we have, I'm attending CascadiaJS to learn and have fun, or have fun and learn. We have a list of 2 different elements, and with conjunction we can uh, put together lists, a huge amount of lists, and they will correctly determine the conjunction that is needed to put all the sentence together. In this case, if you use short, they will add just the I or the and if it's long. This is a very cool one when you need to join large sentence between. And we have the disjunction. Yeah, not all everything is perfect, and in this case will be in CascadiaJS you can have fun or learn. Of course, that is not the correct answer, because here you have fun, you learn, and much more things. Well, display names is one of my favorite ones because I'm watching very closely the evolution of this API. It's just stage 3, but it's already covering a huge amount of use cases, important use cases, and very practical. How many of you needed to have a list of currencies on your web page? Well, I think everybody that does e-commerce or any kind of transactions has this kind of necessity. Here you have a rich and translated list of countries that make able to you have your browser as your dictionary. No more database, no more load, no more local storage to be more performance loading, these kind of things. You already have your dictionary on your browser. The browser is your database in this case. And for currencies it's okay, but also you have for list of countries. You just send the country code, iterate, and you have a full translated list of countries. This is amazing. And temporal. Temporal is just stage 2, but it's something that will bring us lots of cool things. All data manipulations, calendars, all the features that we can find in different libraries that loads tons of megabytes. You can now have it on your browser. It's not finished yet, but you can start using. You have a polyfill, and you may not need, as I said previously, all other libraries that did an excellent job so far, but now it's time to browser to do it. I believe that Temporal came to fix all long-standing issue of dates, and yes, you should just give some feedback, try to use stage 2, but it's already in very good shape. Please just install it and enjoy. And I just need to say thank you, muchas gracias, to everybody that watched this talk, and hope to see you next year on CascadiaJS.
Yay!
Hi.
Amazing talk.
Hello.
That was so
Oh,
good.
thanks.
I know I'm not alone in the fact that I was just scrambling writing notes on everything. There's so many useful little tidbits in there, so I really appreciate that.
Oh, that's great.
There's your Dan in real life example reminded me. There's a Spanish movie called Ocho Apellidos Vascos, and the English title is
Yeah.
Spanish Holiday, which has nothing to do with that Spanish title. That's such a common problem.
Happens constantly in movie industry, but in many different cases. It's so funny sometimes here in Spain, mostly on the restaurants on the south of Spain, because everybody translates on Google Translate or any tool all the menus, and sometimes you can find some funny translations.
Yeah, there's some good little gems in there. So in terms of all of these localization things, have you done any automation of your localization and globalization of your apps? Have you tried it, and have you seen any limitations of that?
Yes, actually, it's one of my parts of my job, and I also involved on some standards to bring some of these functionalities to the browser and to JavaScript language on the message format. It's a very complex. Very complex feature that I think that everybody should be able to do it. But unfortunately, normally big companies have more power to give all these good translated automation tools and all the translations in many different languages to the user. Small companies cannot have all these huge benefits of translating the content and automation as well, because everything has a cost. I hopefully in the future everything will be more standardized and more easy to use to everybody to have already on our JavaScript all the tools needed to give the content in the right way for the final user.
Yeah, I know I've tried doing some of that with some of my projects, but because languages are so different, it's just not that easy. Like I was trying to do like a login with Facebook thing and had some file that had all these different language, continua con Facebook or whatever. But then when you try a language like Hungarian, you got to rearrange things. Then if you do a right to left language, it ends up being completely different.
Even worse. And of course, in the majority of projects, we never know if we add internationalization at beginning. Most of them try to add at the end, because it's always that thing that, okay, at the end we internationalize. And sometimes it's even more costly than start with internationalization from the beginning.
Right, and just have it in mind. And so for the average developer who doesn't work at a large company or who wants to include this in their side projects, do you have any standards or recommendations that they try for just small side projects and average sites like that?
Of course, for all the formatting, for a huge number of functionalities, you can use already all the built-ins from Intel APIs because they are already doing a great job there. Lots of things are coming in future. Also, I mentioned Temporal that will fix all the date, a long-standing issue of the date, and I think that will replace some of libraries that we have been using. But of course, with the cost zero at level of the size and at level of the rich translations. The advice I have, there are lots of different libraries already available in different frameworks that you can also use to translate your strings, because it's something that we don't have on JavaScript. And it's a use case that has like $2 million weekly on NPM. The group of libraries that do translation, Next.js, Fluent, and much more, they have around $2 million weekly. It's a huge reason to have this feature implemented on JavaScript. I think soon. Hopefully soon. I don't see it right now, but I hope so.
Hopefully, yeah. The web has come so far in the past few years, especially in regards to this and accessibility, that I think we're getting there. We've gotten a lot further than I think a lot of people might have expected, and I'm optimistic for the future.
Yes,
well,
I'm pretty optimistic on that.
Yeah, I really appreciate your talk. I, again, learned so much. I can't wait to localize my CSS. I didn't even know I could do that before. But with that, we are going to switch over to Jemima's talk. So thank you so much again, Romulo.
Thank you. Thank you all, everybody that was watching, and see you next year and see you around the Reno. Bye.